just like money. It's a taboo subject that we talk about in the church, and we use money every day. So open your mind, prosperity that God wants for you. So he asked the question, how would Jesus invest? We're breaking the poor man's mentality. The poor man's mentality. How would Jesus invest? We're breaking the poor man's mentality. The poor man's mentality. Yeah.
Well, hello. I am Gayle Gilmore. Welcome to How Would Jesus Invest? My mission each week is to share about that taboo subject and often dirty words in the church: money, prosperity, finances, wealth, and the whole nine yards. I thank you for joining me today. And please let me know that you are watching by typing in the chat. If this is the first time that you have joined, let me just kind of introduce myself. I am the author of a best-selling book, which won the Christian Choice Book Award in 2011. The book was entitled How Would Jesus Invest? Breaking the Poor Man's Mentality, one in the area of finances. Because I contend, just like it says in Hosea 4:6, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, especially in the area of finance. And as I have said many times, and I've done the research, there is more scripture and verses about finances and money than even salvation and faith. And so each week, I just want to come on and just share with you, because I think this is something that's very important at this time. Also, I want to let you know I have written 4 books, including How Would Jesus Invest? My first one, It Can't Be Boring, a Christian youth program for difficult times. Miracles of the Exchange. Did you know that he intentionally wants to bless you? Intentional blessings. And then Only by the Grace of God, the story of Sharon Dixon about my dear friend. And of course, How Would Jesus Invest? Now, if you would like any of these books, you can go to Grace Entwined Ministries and order them. I have been married to the pastor and founder of Grace Entwined Ministries, Pastor James E. Gilmore, for 41, going on 42 years. And I serve as co-pastor. And if you're ever in the Hampton Roads area or Tidewater area, come and visit us at Grace Entwined Ministries. We're located at 3923 Deep Creek Boulevard in the city of Portsmouth, Virginia. We have services every Sunday at 10 a.m. and you are welcome. I would also welcome you, if you haven't already done so, to subscribe to the Gem Nugget channel. Like it, share it right now. Somebody needs this information today. We're over 11,000 subscribers and growing, but this is information you can use. We have other sharings all throughout the week because, like 3 John 2 says, beloved, I wish that you would prosper, be in health, even as your soul prospers. Because so we cover everything all throughout the week because we just want to help somebody. We just want to help somebody. But today I do want to help somebody in the area of finances today. You know, I have been a couple of weeks ago, I was talking about how a wise man leaves an inheritance for their children. I was talking about leaving a legacy of godliness as well as wealth. But there is something that you really don't want to leave your loved ones or children, and that is worry and debt when you leave this life. Oh man, this is a subject I know maybe you just don't want to talk about or hear about, but we need to talk about this because recently, even personally, I've been aware of some issues that some people that I know are dealing with, and it has to do with issues dealing with end of life issues, hospitalization, insurance, and all of those types of things. And so, Lord said, we need to talk about this just a little bit more. And so today, I came up with this subject today. This is the title. Um, we need more than myrrh and a borrowed tomb. Okay, I know somebody's saying, what in the world? Well, even in Jesus's time, uh, there was concerns about how you lived and so forth, but even things to take care of when we pass away. And where does the myrrh come from? Y'all remember when Jesus was born, the wise men brought three gifts: gold, frankincense. Frankincense was incense more for worship, but myrrh was what they used to prepare the bodies of dead people. Myrrh. So the wise men, they brought myrrh even when Jesus was just a baby for his death. And then when Jesus died, he was buried in a borrowed tomb. Now, the only reason he was buried in a borrowed tomb and why they call it a borrowed tomb, because he didn't stay in the tomb, because he rose from the dead. But otherwise, Joseph of Arimathea, who was a wealthy man, made sure that Jesus was taken care of, burial wise. And so he was put into Joseph's tomb. So this is a good thing. I mean, I don't mean to make a joke about it, but Jesus rose from the dead, so Joseph got his tomb back. But anyway, that's not going to happen in this day and time. We need to prepare for those types of issues. I'm reminded of the story in Second Kings, the fourth chapter. There was a widow. She lost her husband. Her husband, it said, was a servant of God. So we know that he was either a pastor, he was a priest, he was an elder. And when he died, guess what? The creditors came and they wanted their money, and she didn't have their money. And they threatened to take her two sons and put them in jail until the debt was paid. But thank God for the prophet Elisha. A lot of y'all know about the story that he told her to have her sons and her go and get all of these vessels and fill them up with oil. And that's what she did. And we know that end of that story. But that's not going to happen in this day and time. So we need to start thinking about those things. And I know, again, this is one of these subjects. And I'm with you, because it wasn't until a few years ago that my husband and I started making some plans for that time. And these are things that we should think about. So today, I want to share a 5-step end of life financial planning checklist. And I've kind of gathered this from a few sources as I was looking at things this week. Before I really get into this, I want to say thank you to a person that sent some very good information. I know she didn't know I was going to do this week, but thank you, Sister Margaret Sears. She sent a whole bunch of information that was very helpful. And I kind of reposted it and I made it shareable and I've shared it with some people. And some people are grateful for that information, because you never know where you'll run into these situations. And, things can be a mess after people pass away. So I just want to thank you, Sister Margaret Seals, for that information, because some of that information me and my husband are going to look into too, that you shared on Facebook. Thank you for that. I also want to give another shout out, because right in our area, there is a radio show that comes on every Thursday. And I've been listening to it for a while because I happen to be in the car when it comes on Thursdays at 12 noon. It's called It's the Law. If you live here in the Hampton Roads area, Tidewater area, it comes out from Hampton University. It comes on 12 noon on WHOV 88.1 FN by Eric O. Moody and Associates. It's a father and son law practice, Eric and Elliot Moody. And they give some great legal advice. And you can also call in with questions. So, if you're in this area, because I've been listening to them for quite a while there. What was so funny, one time they were talking about air property. I had never heard that term before. And when I heard the term air, I'm thinking AIR, like the air you breathe. And it didn't dawn on me. And I kept saying, why are they talking about air property? But they were talking about HEIR, property that is passed down and all the issues and the importance of making a will and this and that, which we're going to get into that today. But again, we have some great information, even in this area here in the 757. But I want to get into this today. And I suggest you get some pencil and paper and you take a few notes here. Take a few notes because we can't be depending on GoFundMe. That's all you hear now. People pass away, and now you have nothing to put in it. What the old people said: put people away properly, and people come up with these GoFundMe. That don't always work either. So today we're going to talk about a 5-step end of life financial planning checklist. And I've gathered this information from a lot of different sources today. So go ahead and get your pencil and paper, because the first step, make a will. Make a will. A last will and testament. It's a really basic document, most basic document that you want to include in your estate plan. See, things have to be in writing, and writing a will gives you the opportunity to specify how you want your assets to be distributed after your death. Because if it's nothing or documentation of any kind, what happens, sometimes things are left up to the courts or the probate court, and they will divide up your property or do whatever they want to with your property. Now, the will, sometimes this is something that people don't understand. You don't have to have a lot of property or a lot of things to have a will. See, it's just important to communicate, and better to have it in writing what you want, how you want things to go after you are passed away. And a lot of times, depending on the state that you live in, you don't even really have to go to a lawyer. You can write it down, maybe witness 2 people or so. You can put it in your safe. You can put it in a secure place so somebody that knows about it can pull it out and deal with it. Even you can, people are videotaping their wills or oral wills, and you have to see what is acceptable in your state. But now it's becoming more and more. People even video. But the important thing is that you let somebody know and have it in writing, or something documented, either orally and in writing, on what you want to happen with your property. Again, you know what? You don't have to have a whole lot. Even if you say, well, I don't have a whole lot, maybe you have a car. And you might have several children, people. Who's going to get the car? Who's going to get the furniture? And who, a whole bunch of stuff. Sometimes you see the biggest mess after a person passes away, even over little stuff, So it's best to put that in writing or communicate that before you pass. So make a will. Again, you don't have to. A lot of times, a lot of people do go to a lawyer and so forth. But the important thing, that somebody is aware of your your desires, of what happens to your stuff after you pass. The next one, Now, this is something that I have just been made aware of, but it's coming up a lot now. Consider a living trust. Um, when it comes to estate planning, sometimes a will just by itself can only do so much. What is interesting about the trust? Unlike a will, a trust takes effect while you're still alive. That's why it's called a living trust, and you can use it to manage your estate both before and after your death. A will is only takes effect after you pass away. But now you have these living trusts that you can have. Just like, say, for instance, if you have real estate, like I said before, vehicles, stocks, bonds, antiques, artwork, jewelry, and bank accounts. You might uh, want to do this for several special reasons. One is if you have young children, you might want to set up a trust that once they get a certain age, they can have access to your money and so forth. And that can be even while you are alive. So that's the difference in the trust. And also, I also learned that another advantage to the living trust is some tax savings that goes along with that for your beneficiaries. And so there's a lot of benefits, and that's something you may want to look more into. Not just a will, but also a living trust. So it's something worth looking into. And like I said, I've heard all of this stuff on Thursdays when I listen to It's the Law. And you can, anything really, you can Google and get more information on it, but it's worth getting the information on. The third thing that you might want to consider, and it should, and I think this is important too, review your beneficiaries, the people that are going to get whatever, your assets and things after you pass. Um, when you name a beneficiary, it ensures that the assets go to the right person. Sometimes you have to review them from time to time. Maybe you have left something to somebody, and maybe the situation has changed. The person passed away. Then you look at some other beneficiaries. Sometimes, say for instance, if you're married and maybe your beneficiary was your spouse, but your spouse passed away before you did. So maybe you want to change the beneficiary and maybe have it go down to your children or grandchildren, whatever the case may be. So it's good to review your beneficiaries. When me and my husband, when we start our working years and everything, and they ask you, who's going to be your beneficiaries, a lot of times each of us were each other's beneficiary. And then if something happened, it would go to the children and so forth. So it's good to do that, especially if you're talking about life insurance policies, annuities, even college saving accounts, 401ks, IRAs, CDs, and all of that. So sometimes it's worth, especially since it's been a while, or maybe you have retired. Like I said, things change, people pass away or different situations come up. And so you want to make sure that you check your beneficiaries. Now, this is really important. If you have joint bank accounts set up with your spouse, you can check with the bank to see if they're set up to allow what is called the right of survivorship. That means that if one of you dies, the money in the account passes directly to the other spouse without having to go through probate and all this kind of crazy stuff. And and we're going to get to this part too. That's why it's also important, especially if you have a joint bank account, since everything is really technical now, that you have each other's, passwords and all of that thing, so you can get to it You don't have to go through all of that. If you have all that information, and you can keep these records even in your phone now, passwords and account numbers and all that type of information, because it can just be a hassle, even trying to get, the things that you need to get. And while I'm thinking about this, it's important that death certificate, because a lot of times, say a spouse passes or a parent passes or whatever, and then they're trying to, people, creditors, bill collectors, they're trying to get paid, and the person that bill is under, you know if you have the death certificate and the bill is not in your name, you are not responsible for that bill, but you do have to present that death certificate. That is very important. And me and my husband have learned that from some past experiences. So that death certificate is very important, because sometimes I remember a relative of my husband, and they trying to get him to pay, and get a birth certificate. No, it was under that relative's name. No, you are not responsible for that. So that's a point that you need to keep in mind. um the fourth one: evaluate your insurance. And I'm not just talking about life insurance. Of course, that insurance is important, but most insurances. Life insurance is designed to replace lost income if something should happen to you or your spouse. Uh, like this suggestion, if you bought life insurance several years ago, you may want to review your policy to make sure you've got the enough coverage. I remember back in the day, a lot of our mothers and relatives, they they only got, like I said, they would only get uh policies. They said, just to put me in the ground and so forth. And those policies were so small, and now it wouldn't be enough for a decent burial. But we have life insurances now. Say, for instance, that you buy a house, you should purchase life insurance that if that spouse dies before you pay off the house, that insurance would even cover the rest of your house mortgage. That is a good idea. So, like it says, how much life insurance you need really depends on your income, your spouse's income, and your assets and your liabilities. Another insurance you may want to consider is long-term disability insurance or long-term care. Like if someone becomes disabled and they lose their income and they're unable to work, long-term care insurance can cover the cost of even the medical care while that spouse is unable to work. A lot of jobs offer that, and I know a lot of people that have benefited from that. So these are things that you can consider. Evaluate your insurance. And the last one, let's see. Um, Consider one that always comes up, and this goes along with considering other assets. Power of attorney. Power of attorney. This is you need to pick somebody, a power of attorney. This is a person that can make decisions for you when you cannot. And that doesn't mean just after you're dead. It's like, people get older, sometimes they get Alzheimer's, they get dementia. They have several types of powers of attorneys, durable powers of attorney, because, it can include things like living arrangements, DNR. If you say, for instance, if you don't want to be resuscitated, like if you're ill, you have to make these things known. There's several others, like you need to consider arrangements. like digital assets. This is what I mentioned before. Make sure you have all your logins and passwords in a place, and let somebody know how they can get to those logins and passwords, in case that they need them. Um, Real estate assets. Now, this is a big one. Who you pass your property to. Sister Seals just mentioned something in her information about, I think the term is called TNR. It specifies where the homes go to, because it's a lot involved in that, especially with paying taxes and all those types of things. The DNR again. If you do not want to be resuscitated, that's what it means. Do not resuscitate, and you can take care of that before, things get to that point. Um, Living arrangements, specify how you would like your housing arrangement to go if you get ill. One of the pastors that was very fond of, Pastor Griffin. you know, uh, she made arrangements um, before she got older or ill to live in a nursing home. Even before because the place that she was in, she moved out and belonged to a relative and so forth. And she made arrangements to live in the nursing home. And guess what? She pastored and preached in the nursing home for years until she passed away. So all of those things. And here was one that I didn't even think of, but it's becoming more prevalent: a pet trust. You may want to consider pet trust if you're leaving an animal behind. We know that a lot of time pets are very important in families. I saw a commercial. You've probably seen the commercial where the owner, after he died, he passed down the service where the pet would get their supplies every month, and also the summer house. But that was kind of funny. But anyway, all of these things that you need to consider. But the bottom line is this: there are steps that you should take to ensure your estate plan, whether, like I said, whether large or small. You want to make sure it is in order and everything will go as you plan after your death. You can even make arrangements with the funeral home. You can do everything, pick out everything. I know, again, that's one of those areas like, oh my gosh, I don't even want to think about that. But, my stepsister, she lived all the way in California, and she took care of everything. I mean, she had everything like right down to the T. And when I got to California, all I had to do was just sign a few papers, and they just had to fill in dates. I mean, she had everything down. She had a person, an executor of her, one of her friends in California, but everything was, down to the T. Nobody had to worry about anything. And that's how you want it, because when that time comes, it's enough. I mean, you're dealing with grief, you're dealing with arrangement, you're dealing with all of that. And so the more that you have prepared before that happens, the better that it is for everybody, even if you prepare. Even if you have to go to the hospital, they're not even talking about passing away, but even going to the hospital if you become ill. So these are some things to consider. Again, it is important. It is very important to make these plans. And today, we just covered uh, five um, five end of life financial steps in this planning checklist today. Because as we say, the importance, this is important, it is important. Another story comes to mind from the Bible when King Hezekiah, One day the prophet Isaiah came and said, you know what? You need to get your house in order because you're getting ready to die. You're not going to live. And, Hezekiah, he said, get your house in order. I remember that. He said, get your house in order. That's what I'm saying today. Get your house in order, because we are leaving here unless the rapture comes before. But we are leaving here, and we need to get our house in order. It's not going to happen like it happened to Hezekiah either. Yeah, he prayed, and 15 years was added to his life. But guess what? After the 15 years, he died. So I'm hoping he had his business in order as well. So this is why this is so important. I thank God for technology. If you missed this, you need to tell somebody about this. Again, this is one of those subjects we really don't like to talk about, but it is very important. It's becoming more important as time goes on. It's just so unfortunate. We have all of these killings and murders, and you see the people come on and they raising money and the GoFundMe and all this type of thing. And we have to be prepared. Of course, I think the worst thing that can happen when a parent has to bury a child. But I even remember my mother, and I couldn't for the life of me why she did this in the beginning. She had insurance policies for my children, and I'm like, what were you expect? But she was like that. And so when I found out about it, and we had our children insured anyway, when I found out about it, I said, Mom, you don't have to have insurance on them anymore. We've got it. But these are some things to consider. And I think it's very important. So I thank you for joining me today. I hope that this information has been very helpful. I don't mean for it to be sad, but we need to be prepared. But again, thank you. Thank you for joining me for How Would Jesus Invest? So I'll see you on next Saturday, same time, same station. Bye-bye.
It seems like money is a taboo subject that we talk about in the church, and we use money every day. So open your mind that God wants for you. So he asked the question, how would Jesus invest? We're breaking the poor man's mentality. How would Jesus invest? We're breaking the poor man's mentality.